The Black Dahlia, Hollywood's darkest mystery. It was a cold January morning in 1947 when a tragedy would take center stage in Los Angeles, an event so gruesome and unforgettable that it would go on to haunt Hollywood's glittering legacy. A woman walking her child in the empty lots of Leimert Park stumbled upon what she thought was a broken mannequin. What she discovered, however, was far worse: a meticulously severed body, pale against the damp earth, lifeless and shockingly mutilated. The victim was Elizabeth Short, a radiant 22-year-old aspiring actress whose young life had been brutally cut short. Media outlets couldn't resist the shock value of the crime. Headlines screamed about the Black Dahlia, a moniker tied to Elizabeth's striking looks and her rumored fondness for dark attire, though it also eerily echoed the noir flavor of the recent movie, The Blue Dahlia. What followed was a media frenzy, a flawed investigation, and a series of bizarre leads and false confessions that transformed her brutal death into one of America's most enduring mysteries. To understand Elizabeth Short's murder is to understand Los Angeles in the 1940s, a paradoxical city drenched in glamour and grit. Post-war Hollywood flourished as the hopes and dreams of thousands sought refuge under its shimmering lights. Young women from all corners of the country arrived in search of stardom, only to find themselves at the mercy of an unforgiving entertainment industry. Elizabeth Short was one such dreamer. Born and raised in Massachusetts, she epitomized small-town charm with a restless ambition. Like countless others, fame called her westward. A striking young woman with raven black hair and a haunting smile, Elizabeth sought to break into the movie industry. But the road to fame wasn't lined with red carpets. Instead, she struggled, living on the fringes of society, taking menial jobs, and depending on the kindness and sometimes the exploitation of strangers. On that chilling January morning, Elizabeth's body was found severed into two pieces, a clean bisection at the waist that suggested surgical precision. Her face was slashed into a grotesque grin, extending from ear to ear. It wasn't just a murder, it was a message, a macabre display meant to horrify. Investigators combed through the scene, desperate to find clues, but what they uncovered offered little clarity. There was no blood, suggesting the murder had taken place elsewhere. Her body had been carefully washed, almost sterile, before being left in plain view. A single sinister thought hovered among the detectives. This was no ordinary killer. The press descended like vultures, drawn to the lurid details of Elizabeth's death. Her tragic story sold newspapers, but at what cost? The media painted Elizabeth as a femme fatale, a dangerous beauty who courted trouble. They sensationalized her lifestyle, focusing on her romantic entanglements and suggesting she was a woman of questionable morals. True or not, the damage was done. Elizabeth Short was no longer just a victim. She had become a caricature of the Hollywood siren. With the name Black Dahlia splashed across front pages, the story took on a life of its own. Her personal struggles were cast aside, replaced with salacious tales aimed at feeding the public's growing obsession with her murder. The case was handed to the Los Angeles Police Department, but the odds were stacked against them. Forensics technology at the time lacked the precision we have today. DNA testing was decades away from becoming a reliable tool. On top of that, a carnival atmosphere surrounded the case. False confessions poured in. Over 100 people came forward claiming responsibility, each tale more outrageous than the last. The investigators pursued an endless stream of dead ends. Witnesses were inconsistent, and the intense media coverage muddled potential evidence. Corruption within the LAPD added another layer of complication, leaving many to wonder if vital truths had been deliberately buried. As the investigation faltered, Elizabeth's case developed a rogues gallery of suspects, each more chilling than the last. Among them was Dr. George Hodel, a prominent and deeply unsettling figure. Hodel was a well-connected surgeon whose name surfaced years later thanks to his son, Steve Hodel, a former LAPD detective. Steve unearthed a trove of evidence, including disturbing journal entries and connections that placed Dr. Hodel both near Elizabeth Short's social circle and within proximity of the crime. A chilling discovery further implicated him. The basement of one of his former homes revealed traces of human decomposition. Yet, George Hodel was never formally charged, and his involvement remains speculative to this day. There were others, too. Men who frequented Hollywood's darker circles, acquaintances from Elizabeth's transient lifestyle, and even strangers who lurked in the shadows of her final days. None of them, however, have been definitively proven guilty. Elizabeth Short's murder is more than a personal tragedy. It is a chilling commentary on the exploitation of women in Hollywood. Institutions preyed upon dreamers like Elizabeth, often leading them to dangerous or desperate circumstances. Her story highlights the harsh reality of an industry that consumed young women like her, offering fleeting glimpses of stardom before discarding them entirely. But this exploitation didn't end in life. After her death, the media carried on the same cycle, reducing her existence to provocative headlines and one-dimensional narratives. In many ways, Elizabeth was robbed twice, once by her killer, and once by the insatiable hunger of a society that demanded to be entertained even by her death. Over the decades, countless theories have surfaced, attempting to unravel the enigma of the Black Dahlia murder. Some suggest that Elizabeth's killer was someone she trusted, someone close enough to betray her in the most intimate way. Others entertain the idea of a stranger, a calculated predator armed with surgical skill and disturbing intent. With the advent of modern forensic techniques, there have been attempts to revisit the case, yet the passage of time has eroded key pieces of evidence. Even DNA advancements provide only fragments of the larger puzzle, leaving the Black Dahlia murder frozen in ambiguity. Why does the Black Dahlia case continue to fascinate us even after 7 decades? On the surface, it's a classic true crime mystery, an innocent victim, a horrific murder, and an elusive killer. But beneath this lies something deeper, a reflection of our society's darker impulses. We are drawn to stories like Elizabeth Short's because they allow us to confront the unsettling question: how far can human cruelty extend? Elizabeth Short was more than the grisly details of her death, more than a Hollywood dream turned nightmare. She was a young woman with hopes, friends, and a family who mourned her loss. It is this humanity that makes her case all the more haunting and all the more important to remember. The Black Dahlia murder remains one of history's darkest unsolved mysteries, not just for the horror of the crime, but for the complex web of failures and societal reflections it leaves in its wake. For true crime enthusiasts, it is a cautionary tale reminding us of the fragility of justice and the resilience of human curiosity. As we step back from the shadow cast by these events, perhaps the greatest mystery of all is our own enduring fascination. Why do we continue to seek answers for crimes long past? Perhaps it is because somewhere in that search lies not only the truth about Elizabeth Short, but something deeper about ourselves.